Good morning and welcome everybody. How are you doing today? Okay, let's try that one again. How's everybody doing?
We're good, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. Teresa, are you battling with connection? I see you dropping and going. Is it unstable at the moment? Good, good. Very crisp this morning. Yeah, and that again makes us realize that we are still okay. We're still alive. Sky's blue. But it will be raining again tomorrow. So, and I'm getting my second jab tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Not that I do plan on traveling in the near future, but at least as some people refer to it, it might become your passport for travel. The fact that you can prove that you have been vaccinated, apart from the obvious benefits of being vaccinated, and that is reducing the chance that you can actually no problem, Teresa. You reduce the risk of being affected, and obviously also affecting other people for that matter. But anyway, enough about COVID. I think we've all had enough about it, right? We've had enough. You know what? I would have loved to actually have met the students and face to face in Centurion. It's all good and well to do the online sessions. I think the benefits largely lie in the fact that the sessions are recorded. You can watch it any time of day. If you miss a session, it's not the end of the world. But as opposed to the traditional way, if you miss a class, then you just need to catch up and get the notes from somebody else. But it is strange challenges and new challenges that we are faced with. Something I just want logistically that I want to share with you. There are two things. The first one, before we start with the session or we start with the chapter today, is there has been a request based on discussions among different stakeholders, including the students, and especially acting on feedback from students, that we stick to our 5-minute breaks between sessions, especially when you have double periods. Usually when it's not a double period, it doesn't really matter, because then you have to go, you leave the session and go to a different lecture anyway. But especially for double periods that we do honor the break. What I'm going to do is I might give us more breaks than a 5-minute break. I can understand a 5-minute break between sessions, because there might be students who, for various reasons, have double bookings with lectures, and as a result, they could maybe only attend the second period of a double period. And if we have not taken our break, or we've extended our session beyond the 40 minutes to maybe finish a bit earlier, it can impact, because then they actually miss work and they miss a session. So I'll try and stick to 40 minutes with a 5-minute break in between, but it doesn't mean that I cannot allow any other breaks for you guys in between as well. So whenever you get to that point where you feel, I've got no idea where we are at the moment, I'm battling to focus, and for those smokers who need a smoke break, raise your hand. I'll quickly do a 2-minute break. We can just go to the not that you don't do that anyway. Of course, yes, Andre. Not that you don't do that anyway, because you don't have to excuse yourself, because I can't see what you're doing during the session. You might get up when you have to go up and go. It's really us who stuck to the screen, because we are organizing the session. Takun, you have a question there?
No, I was just raising my hand when Sir said the smokers.
You're in support.
Yeah.
Okay, so smokers, raise your hands. Then I know that you are not in the session at that point, that you actually have quickly ducked away for a 5-minute smoke break, because I can't monitor that, obviously, if I can't see what you're doing. But please just do that, because then I know I can actually address the other students and maybe use an example that's appropriate at that stage. And it's like it's just common courtesy. I mean, you're not just going to get up and I mean I can recall, and that's the sort of old school experiences. A couple of years ago, when we were still on campus, one of the students at the back of the class just got up and left, bag over their shoulder, and walked out. And before they got to the door, I said, "Oh, excuse me, where are you going?" No, I have to go. I said, "Well, yeah, but not that I can actually prohibit you from going, but or prevent you from going. But you know what? Common courtesy is just raise your hand, please. Can I leave? I'm not going to give you a third degree and say, guys, sorry, it's not a good enough reason. Sit. No, you can't. Wait till the class is finished, kind of thing. I mean, we're all adults in that regard. So let's just respect each other's in that regard. And I don't have a problem if you just raise your hand and say, or type in the meeting chat, I'm quickly going for a smoke. Fine, it's good. I don't have a problem with that. But it helps me to monitor exactly where the entire group is doing the session and how I can structure the session. That's the one thing I just want to get out of the way. So we're going to try and stick to the 40-minute sessions. Especially when we have, or particularly when we have double periods, but allow breaks as we progress, but definitely the 5-minute gap between the sessions. And then I'm going to go one slide back. This will obviously be in the recording. When you do your assignment, we spoke about it yesterday, because there's no official template. And there are students who have raised a question about the font to use. The font, as it says in the instructions, is Braille Grotesque Regular. I know that a lot of students don't have that on their devices. So I would recommend, again, because there's no official policy in that regard, I've tried to get information from various resources, but nobody could confirm or deny that there is official policy in that regard. So my recommendation then would be, if you do not have that particular font or access to that particular font, do it in Arial, and then use the font size of 12, please. And then on the screen, as I said yesterday, be as creative as you have to. You can be as boring as you need to be, as long as that information that you have on the screen is on there. I want to make sure that we know that it's a particular model, a module that's represented, what assignment you are doing, because in some cases, some modules do 1 or 2 or 3 assignments. And then obviously your name, surname, and student number. That's the basics. That's what I want on there. In what particular format and where you position it on the page, not important to me, but that is what we are going to use as a sort of a unofficial standardized cover page for your assignments. Okay, we'll spend time on the assignment, and please, we have 2 sessions tomorrow. I'm going to use part of one session to address specifically the assignment. We're going to put the assignment up on the screen, and we're going to go through it question by question. I had questions from some students already. Have we done this already in the course? Can I do this? Because I know some students are busy working on the assignments already. Right, but let's go back to the topic. And what do you, before we delve into it literally, because using that word, I mean, apparently that's one of the 4 buzzwords that's been used by Gen Zs. Gen Zs, people born between 2000 and 2012, or after 97 and 2012, you Gen Zs. Okay, anybody between 6 and 25, basically. There are specific buzzwords that they're using, trending words. So for this interesting discussion, I listened to on what the popular terminology and lingo is among the Gen Zs, and that was one of the words that came up, literally, but obviously not used in the context that it vibes is one, buzz apparently, buzzing. If something is really for us, the baby boomers and the millennials, it would be cool. But if something is not cool, it's or something is cool, it's actually buzzing apparently. Interesting. And also interesting, the new interpretation of the terminology. Nothing that we have not been, words I haven't, it's not new reinvented words. It's just words that's used in a different context nowadays. And it's sometimes, and I think the conversation was more about millennial and baby boom parents who have Gen Zs in their households. Yes, that's another one, wonder. Using those words in the right context, or often, you know what, especially, and those of you who, and this is a lesson for those who don't have children yet, because those who do have already experienced this. There are certain phases in your child's life that you actually take a backseat. Okay, I know you want to be involved, I know you want to be cool, and you know want to be the cool parent. You know what? When those eyes roll, that means that you, sorry, dad, mom, not good. Okay, not cool. So don't try and necessarily converse, especially when there's friends over visiting your children, in an attempt to be cool. Be aware of the fact that that's how they chat, so you can actually understand what how the conversation is going. Yeah, it's been interesting how things have changed. But anyway, people, basically, literally, as I said earlier on, delving into this chapter. That's what originally prospecting is all about. That's how the big hole was formed in Kimberley. People were looking for diamonds. One person found a diamond. Before you know it, it was absolute unorganized, later unorganized chaos, and people were mining for diamonds. And the way in which you did it basically is that you got a little, you bought a little plot, so to speak, that you then, obviously your territory that you can operate in, and anything you find in that, obviously in that area is yours. Similarly, later on, when the gold fields in Gauteng was established, similarly, people, somebody one day found some gold nuggets, and that went to that led to the gold rush. That's prospecting. To be able to find that diamond or that piece of gold or that gold nugget, you have to literally, and the prospector in the image on the left hand side, that's what they did, people. They actually sifted through many bucket loads of dirt to be able to find that diamond or that piece of gold. Similarly, prospecting refers to working through a lot of potential buyers, because they are not prospects yet. The whole process of finding a prospect is what this concept is about. But let's look at it in more detail. Right, learning outcomes. I'm not going to highlight the learning outcomes in the chapter, so you can have a look at it. But when you start the process of prospecting, you are attempting to find leads, which basically is everybody that has the potential to buy from your business. Right, pick a business for me. Anybody, just for the sake of an example. I want to just off the bat use the example that you've chosen. Pick a business. What are we selling today? Spur. Right. Lachlan? No, it's too early in the morning. No, don't. I mean, I've already now got that image in my head, and the smell is also, oh, no. Anyway, let's go to Spur. Spur is a business. It's a family restaurant, and the Spur, anybody basically of any age is obviously a potential customer of the Spur. But it doesn't mean that everybody will go there. It's a family restaurant, so obviously when you sift through everybody, all the potential customers, it will basically be anybody from the age of 6 when they have birthday parties, or 5 when they have birthday parties there, although the mum and dad's paying for it, the child obviously is part of the clientele, up to old people just go there for a breakfast or a cup of coffee or whatever, or a cheesecake or whatever they offer. I don't know. I haven't been this person as my kids have been in high school. So anybody who has the potential, I would say from the age 6 upwards, 5 upwards, are leads, are potential customers. A prospect is when you qualify them. In other words, who would be eligible to go there? Predominantly, it would be families. Predominantly, it would be either a bunch of students, a group of students who visit, or it would be people with children. There are a variety of options available to everybody when it comes to restaurants, but it's a family restaurant. It's pitched at that. So when the leads or the potential buyers are identified, Spur sits down and says, right, we're going to open a Spur in this particular area, and when we do our research, we are going to be looking at how many people between the ages, how many people over the age of 6 are actually live in this area. Is it the younger area? Would there be more families with children? Or is it a more established area where maybe it's just husband and wife and there's no children, or there's grown children? When you are going, that's part of your prospecting, people. We are sifting through all our potential customers to get to our prospects. The prospects are the ones who are more than likely going to visit our shop and more than likely going to buy from us. Okay. Right. Any questions at this stage? Everybody understand? You're a lead when you have the potential to buy from a customer. You become a prospect when you are qualified by the salesperson. In other words, are you more than likely going to buy? Would you have a need for the products that that company is offering? And do you have the financial means to actually do a transaction with that business? Okay, but the whole process that I've just explained to you is called prospecting. Right. A good guideline for prospectors would be to say the 70-20-10 rule. You're going to try in your prospecting activities to do 70% of your prospecting activities are activities that's already been done successfully by you before. Okay, because it's just repeating the what's been working. 20%. You're going to try and do something similar to what your competitors do, because they might be getting different customers than you because they are doing something different. That's 20% of your activities are going to be focused on that. And then you always have to be creative, because that's going to keep you or make you keep that competitive advantage. And that is to do something that has not been done before. That's a new creative way of finding new customers that nobody else in your particular industry has thought of before. Okay, so that's how we break up our prospecting activities. We try and do 70% of what has worked. We try and do 20% of what has been used and successfully used. You're not going to copy those things that doesn't work for your competitors. 20% of what has worked for your competitors, and 10% new creative ideas that you are the first ones to have thought of. Right. Having said that, and basically in summary, what we have up to this point covered: customers who have the potential to buy from you and has been qualified. In other words, they would have a need for the product and they have the ability to buy that product. They are prospects. First step in the selling cycle is prospecting. It is the first step in the whole process, but it's also not. It can also be seen as a separate activity that has to be done before you can actually start the sales process. So in some literature, you'll see that prospecting is done stands next to the whole selling process, and it's not seen as the first step in the selling process, because selling has not started yet. You are just preparing the potential and sifting through all the potential customers to get to those that you want to sell to. Okay, so sometimes in some literature it's not included in the selling steps of selling, but in our case and in our literature, it's the first step in the selling process. Right, let's go to some relevant quote that I picked up that I think is very important to remember, and that is to keep on prospecting. Prospecting is not an activity, and that's why in some literature it's seen as a separate activity and not the first step in prospecting. In selling. It's because it's done continuously. You're not to start the selling process, you prospect and then you forget about it and you park it because you tick that box, you've done step 2, you're now going to step 1, you're going to step 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 up to 10. You do it continuously. And we'll see later in the session why we have to continuously do that and not just, my apologies, limited to a first step in the process. Always keep your your prospecting pipeline filled up. Okay. Steps in the selling process. In our case, we've included prospecting as the first step, but again, it can be seen as not a separate step, but an activity that needs to happen to get the whole selling process or selling cycle started. Okay. Anybody, any questions at this point? All clear? The work is quite straightforward, but I want you to thank you very much, Tarquin. Right. Let's get a bit of a background on prospecting. And the reason why we spend so much time and will spend the majority of today and both sessions tomorrow on this particular chapter is because of its the importance of this particular activity. If you do not prospect correctly, you're going to end up wasting a lot of time because you are going to end up with customers that never really had the potential to buy from you because you didn't qualify them properly. Usually, your prospecting process starts with a demographic and the psychographic gathering of knowledge and information of your potential customers, because that reflects age, gender, lifestyle, and that will help you a great deal because, and we have in previous chapters and we have in the first semester in business marketing, we have identified what and why psychographics or psychographic segmentation has been used more effectively nowadays, because usually a lot of the other aspects can be determined many other important elements that will define your potential customer you can gather from psychographic information. If somebody drives a specific vehicle, if somebody lives in a particular area, if somebody on their Facebook, you can see that they have a specific lifestyle, active lifestyle. They're out in the mountains and on their mountain bikes, and they kite surfing, and they all over outdoor people. You know what? If you're trying to sell a library membership to those people, they're probably going to laugh at you, because I mean it's not going to float their boat, and it's definitely not going to get them excited. But from lifestyle, we can determine a great deal of what our potential customers are more than likely going to be interested in purchasing. But that's the starting point. That's the starting point. If you are going to prospect intelligently, that's where you start. Right. We have said it before, but please be clear from the start what the difference between a prospect and a lead is. Okay. A lead might, if through qualification, if they tick the boxes that you have set as criteria, will become prospects. And I think this is probably where the secret in the whole prospecting, effective prospecting lie. The ability to qualify your leads correctly. Why is it important that we prospect? If you want to, if you want your prospecting activities to be most efficient, you almost have to think prospecting all the time. Meaning that there must be a 24/7 alertness for opportunities of finding new leads. Not prospect, finding new leads. You can qualify them later, but you need to find them first. Okay? And that is to be very observant. In my opinion, if you read a lot, if your general knowledge is above average, you're very much on top of what's happening and what is trending. That's a huge benefit and boost if you can have a sound or use that as the sound foundation to generate more leads. A lot of people nowadays are very much, and I think we've become, as a result of what we are experiencing globally, and more specifically the isolation from our normal activities. I think people who were used to traveling and who love traveling, they probably were hit the hardest during lockdown with all these traveling restrictions. But I think we often find that people today have sort of isolated themselves from a lot of areas where they gathered lots of information from in the past. We've almost our worlds have become slightly smaller because the interaction, the physical interaction, social interaction, apart from what's happening electronically. I'm not talking about things that's happening online, that's gone through the roof. But I'm talking about people people's normal social activities, going out to restaurants, going out to sporting activities. I drove past 3-4 sports fields this morning, and you could see that they are run down because they are not used, and they're not obviously maintained properly. Yes, partially financial, because of financial reasons, but why would you maintain a particular sporting facility if it's not been used, or if it's not being used, and you don't know if it's going to ever be used? So it is very challenging, because those events, social events that has been part of our lives have changed, and as a result of that, maybe our resources, our access to specific resources that has provided us with very valuable information has actually not dried up, but it's we're not as active in those areas, and therefore, especially now, because we had to change our methods of prospecting, of finding new customers, we have to be very creative, and obviously a lot is done online, and even more so now. It's important to read a lot, to stay in touch with what's happening globally. Hence the fact that I encourage you all the time by bringing good and bad news events to the forum, because it just sort of helps to activate the whole process of finding information wherever we can. Prospecting never stops. It's not a part-time activity. It's not something that all of a sudden, as I said earlier, we do, and then we have our 100. We've collected 100 leads and we've qualified them, and we're left with 50 prospects. Okay, right, now we're working those 50 prospects. What happens if those 50 prospects have all been contacted? Are you starting from scratch again? You still have to continue finding new leads during that period that you are following up on your prospects that you've already qualified. The bigger your client base or your customer base, your database of potential customers, the better for you. Like that quote that Mr. Darcy said earlier on in one of the slides. Keep your pipeline filled up the whole time, people. It's very important to the success of effective prospecting. Two main reasons why we continuously prospect. Obviously, it increases our sales. The more prospects we have, the greater our potential is to make a sale. And then obviously, at some point, for various reasons, nature taking its course, we lose customers, we have to replace customers, customers become dissatisfied with us, customers move on into a different phase of their life, and the products that we offer maybe is not part of what they need at that stage, and we have to replace them. It's therefore, hence the fact that it's therefore a continuous process to ensure that we remain successful. Right, now what are we looking for in a prospect? What we're looking for in a prospect is that, firstly, they must need the product that we are selling. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. They must have the money to pay for the product that we are selling. Or, excuse me, if they are not the person who carries the wallet, they must be the influencer who has the authority to qualify, to make that transaction. Very often, it's also somebody who trusts a particular brand or a particular salesperson because they have built a relationship with that individual. If I trust a particular brand, anybody, let's talk about brands quickly. Just name brands that you know what, based on your experience, not on what everybody else and your influencers out there have said, based on your own personal experience. Bring one brand to the table that you know if you have to buy that same product again when it needs to be replaced, you will, without doubt, without even thinking, go back to that same brand and support them, because you trust the whole process that you've gone through. You trust the product and the quality that they offer. The bulls. You want me to put my put my foot in my mouth there? Andre, yes, the Bulls. The Bulls have always they are a solid brand, and they again, I think the time that they struggled is because they stopped prospecting. They were not getting anybody new in to fill very important, vital positions when certain players left and certain players got injured and certain players just ended their careers. So it's finding that balance. And then when somebody with great experience, like the current director of rugby at the Bulls, came in, you realize that you need to find that fine balance between those experienced individuals that doesn't necessarily play a big role on the field, but that can actually inspire and assist and share experience with the youngsters coming through, to find that balance. And I think it's extremely important, again, in the times where the budgets of our big franchises were limited as a result of COVID. So that's a good one, Luanda. Sorry. But again, if you look at their track record, nobody's won the FA Cup more than they have. So yes, there's there's some good examples, but you're quite right. It's a brand that you can trust, and you will support that. If the new supporters jersey come out, you'll be one of the first ones to buy it. I think it's important that we see those prospects, that we treat those customers with the greatest care, because we'll see later on that part of your prospecting, in other words, or methods to prospect, in other words, where will you find your prospects, comes from referrals of satisfied customers. More about that when we continue with the session tomorrow, or the chapter tomorrow. But that's why it's important that you, as the salesperson representing the brand, you are the one that that needs to be trusted. Because if they trust you, if you trust the brand, they will see that because you trust the brand, you can be trusted by them as well. Because you are that link between the customer and the brand, the customer and the business. And never forget that. Right, everybody, I think we have a couple of minutes left, about 2 or 3 minutes to go. I'm not going to continue and start a new session, a new section, because the new section, actually, when we did our pre-recordings last year during hard lockdown, was actually when the next session or section of this chapter started, part 2 of this chapter started. And that is when we're going to be looking at the prospecting methods. So I'm not going to start with prospecting methods now, and then we'll have to repeat everything again tomorrow, or we definitely, I don't want to lose any continuity. So at this point, I'd much rather give you opportunities to ask any questions that you might have. Anything that you want me to look into that that you're unsure about, the course in general, it could be, and do prepare any questions specifically related to your assignment for me for tomorrow. I would like to sort of 4 weeks, at the end of the 4th week, just spend at least 15 minutes on the assignment and the progress that we are making, or specifically the troubles that you are experiencing. So prepare that for me for tomorrow. During one of the sessions, more than likely the second session, we're going to be spending time on that, please. Anything else that you want me to look into before tomorrow, or that you need feedback on, something that's troubling you at the moment? Teresa says she's fine. Talking is fine. Anybody else? All looks good. Stanley's also okay. Stan's okay, then everybody's okay. Right. Thanks, students. Thanks very much. We'll chat again tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think it's one of those early starts, 8 o'clock. First period tomorrow morning. We will hit the ground running again, and we'll finish the week on the high. In the meantime, until we chat again tomorrow, stay safe, take care of yourselves, make the best of today. Right, keep well, everybody, and thanks for today.